Chapter 13, Impact. So we're going to look at collisions between objects, and we're going to characterize those collisions by either oblique, where the velocities are not in the same direction as the line of impact, or kind of a central direct impact where the velocities are going in the same direction as where that impact happens and the force happens. The line of impact here is going to be really important. If you just connect the centers of the objects that are hitting one another, this is the direction that forces are going to happen in, is this line of impact. And for velocities and changing the velocities, they will only change based on the force where this line of impact is. So let's go ahead and look at a couple more detailed diagrams here. Here is just one object. It's getting thrown up against the wall. It hits the wall and bounces back. So intuitively, you can kind of think about the velocity going into this collision and the velocity going out of this collision, and how would we apply our momentum equations to this kind of a scenario. So let's go ahead and break everything into x and y components, because our linear momentum, this is a vector. So here is everything in the x direction, and you'll notice that we have a force that's in the x direction. It's 90 degrees to the surface that the particle is hitting, and because of this force in the x direction, my velocity in the x direction is going to be changed. So this is the linear momentum equation. So we have our incoming velocity going to the right. We have a force that's pushing it to the left, and that results in a new velocity that's going to the left. So this is what's happening in the x direction. Now let's think through the y direction. So we have our starting velocity coming up, but in this case, if there's maybe no friction, there's no force in the y direction, and because there's no force in the y direction, that means that the starting velocity in the y direction is going to be the same as the ending velocity in the y direction. So in this case, this tangent or y component of velocity has not changed, while only the x component has changed. Okay, if this gets slanted, okay, so now our wall isn't straight up and down, you're still going to do the same thing. So we're going to split everything up into what is normal to the surface and what is tangent to the surface. And know that the force is only going to happen in this normal direction. So that's the piece of the velocity that's going to get changed here. Again, the tangent piece, there's no force in that direction. That velocity does not change. In the x direction, there is a force. And so that piece of the velocity does get changed. So it's very important to draw your coordinate system in the normal and tangent directions of how that collision is happening. Direct central impact. So this is a case where the velocities of the particles are in the same direction as the line of action of where the force is going to happen. Let's walk through the scenario where this back particle A has a larger velocity than B, so it's going to catch up with B, they collide, and then they bounce out of the collision, and they now have new velocities after they've collided with one another. A couple different things happen during this collision. There's going to be a period where they deform. So when they first come together and they start smushing, and after that deformation gets to be the maximum value, it bounces out of the collision again, where it has to restore itself to its original shape. And the amount of restoration that happens, that's going to control your coefficient of restitution, which, if you think about it, that initial contact is a very small area. Large force, small area means you're going to have plastic deformation, or deformation that does not elastically bounce back to what it was. And because of that plastic deformation, you'll have heat that's given off, you lose energy, it's not going to bounce back to what it was, and so your coefficient of restitution is not going to be 1. It's not going to be 100% restored to what it used to be. Okay, looking at these velocities, A starts out with the largest velocity. If the coefficient of restitution is close to 1, B will end up getting close to what the velocity of A was. So it's like they switch velocities through this collision. interesting enough. If you consider the linear momentum equation describing what's happening here, and we're going to go ahead and define our system boundaries as something going around both of the particles. So when we look at everything inside the boundaries, here is the MVs going into the collisions, and then we have some kind of a force that is going to come in there, and then we'll have the MVs coming out of the system. So kind of three different things to look at here. So here's going in, and we're going to include both of those particles inside of our system, and then the forces coming in here and the velocities coming out after the collision for our entire system. For these forces, these are going to be equal and opposite to one another, so they cancel out. And in this scenario, we would say that linear momentum is then conserved because all of our forces are internal. Conservation of linear momentum versus conservation of energy. Notice that I'm not worried about coefficient of restitution in here. There's nothing that would change my conservation of linear momentum depending on what happened during that collision. So it could give off all kinds of heat. They could be permanently stuck together at the end. It could be, completely cracked and broken, but I would still have conservation of linear momentum because the internal forces are still equal and opposite to one another. This is a confusing thing because MV looks very similar to 1/2 MV squared. And it seems like if energy is conserved, then linear momentum would be conserved. And if energy is not conserved, if there's heat given off and the particles are broken and it's not bouncing back to what it was, if coefficient of restitution is 0, that if energy is not conserved, then MV doesn't seem like that would be conserved either. But that's the weird thing. This will be conserved no matter what happens during that collision because these internal forces will always cancel out. Okay, so let's say we know the incoming velocities and we don't know the outgoing velocities. And we'll denote those outgoing velocities with this little tick mark at the end. We need another equation then, right? Because we have two particles and two different velocities coming out of it. So this is where we're going to get into the coefficient of restitution for our second equation. Let's just look at particle A. So we have the velocity of A going into the collision, and then during the collision, B is pushing back on A, it's deforming A, and then during the collision, there's some intermediate velocity while the collision is happening. Okay, so here's the part where you're deforming the particle, and then there's going to be another piece where you're restoring it, where it's kind of bouncing back out again. So we'll call this the period of restitution, and we're going to start with this velocity that's happening during the collision. So our M1 V1 is going to be the velocity inside the collision, and now we have this restoring force, right? So it was pushing in and deforming it, and now it's pushing out and restoring itself. So there's kind of these two different forces going on. And then at the very end, we have the velocity after the collision is completely finished. So why would we want to break it up into what's happening while it's deforming versus popping back out to its original size? What can we do with this information? Because usually we don't care about the velocity that's happening during the collision itself. We just want the starting velocity versus the ending velocity, right? Okay, well, let's go ahead and define the ratio of the restoring impulse force to the deformation impulse force. So the ratio of these two forces we're going to call the coefficient of restitution. So if it does not restore, if it completely breaks and it doesn't bounce back up at all, that would be coefficient of restitution of 0. Versus if it restores entirely, 100%, it completely bounces back and it finds its same shape again, that would be a coefficient of restitution of 1. That's where you would have the energy conserved in the system. So this is for particle A. We can do a similar analysis for particle B, in which case we would get a similar relationship between R and P. And putting these two together, we can rearrange a few terms and come to this equation here. And this is what we're going to be using as our second equation for these collision problems so that we can solve for two unknowns. So we have the difference in velocities going into the equation, and what comes out of it is going to be some fraction of what goes into it. So coefficient of restitution, this is going to be a fraction, right? So some fraction of what goes into it is what comes out of it. And notice the sign change here too. So A minus B versus B minus A. And you can think of like maybe throwing a ball at the wall. So it goes one way, it hits, and then it goes the opposite direction. So you have kind of a reversal of signs through that collision process. Okay, perfectly plastic, E is 0, so that's like an egg breaking, versus perfectly elastic, that's where energy would be conserved. And if E is 0, that means they're stuck together at the end of the collision. They both have the same velocity. Versus if E is equal to 1, then they just change signs with one another. So the velocity of A becomes the velocity of B, and they just kind of switch which particle has which velocity at the end of it. So here's E equals 0. It does not restore itself. Coefficient of restitution is 0. It's splat. There's no bouncing back. Versus coefficient of 1, which never actually happens. But if it has that impact and then it bounces back to the same height, it completely restores itself. No plastic deformation. That would be coefficient of restitution of 1. So elastic versus plastic. Plastic deformation is stuff that will not pop back versus elastic deformation. You get back what you put into it. Oblique central impact. So this is where the incoming velocity is not in the same direction as the line of action of the force for this thing. And in this case, we're going to break the velocities up into the normal and tangent component. So here's tangent, that's tangent to both of those circles. And then normal, if you draw a line connecting the centers of the two particles, that's the normal direction, and this is the direction that forces are going to happen in. So if you, this mv, linear momentum, this is a vector. So just like forces, where you break forces into x and y components, let it get everything in the x direction and everything in the y direction, same with linear momentum. So we're going to break our velocities and forces in x, y, z components. The force in the x direction changes the velocity in the x direction. The force in the y direction changes the velocity in the y direction. And the impulse during collisions only happens in this normal direction. So when we look at the velocity changes, it will change in the normal direction. It will not change in the tangent direction because there's no force in the tangent direction. So that's an interesting thing to note for these guys. So tangent, you have the same incoming and outgoing velocities. For normals, we do not. And in the normal direction, usually you group the system to look at both particles together, and then you don't have to worry about those equal and opposite internal forces during the collision. So here is our conservation of linear momentum for this guy, but notice the direction on this. So the change between this and the previous slide is that in this case, we are only looking at the normal component of those velocities. And combining this with our coefficient of restitution equation, we have two equations, two unknowns, and we can solve for outgoing velocities if we have the ingoing velocities. Let me just show you a little bit better figure for this. So here's particles A and B. They have some velocity coming into one another. They're colliding, and we have to figure out what their exit velocities are. First thing, let's go ahead, think about what forces they're going to experience. And then we're going to draw in the normal and the tangent directions for this collision. Okay, so just connect the centers of these particles to one another. And then we're going to take our incoming velocities and we're going to split them up into what piece of the velocity is in the same direction as this force and what part of this velocity is going to be the same going in and out of that collision. So here we go. They bounce away from one another. And if we look at the tangent piece is not changing before and after, right? There's no force in this direction. So before and after for both particles have that same velocity bouncing out of it. But in the normal direction, in this orange direction, there is a force here. So this is where things will get interesting with our linear momentum equations and our coefficient of restitution equation. So we can solve for two equations, two unknowns, but we're just getting this x component of the velocity, right, through these linear momentum and coefficient of restitution. This is all in the x direction, x, 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 x. This is all in just this normal direction here. Okay, let's go ahead and plug in numbers just so you can see what one of these is like. So for this one, what I had was an incoming velocity of 5 for A and an incoming velocity of 7 for B. And maybe I know the angle in here, so I can break this up into tangent and normal components. So I have like 5 sine 15 and 5 cosine 15. And so I break everything up into its x and y components. And then I'm just going to plug in my normal components to this linear momentum. For the green part of it, 4.8, 4.8, it does not change before and after. 2.4, 2.4. So again, it's not changing before and after the collision. It's just this orange component that changes because that's where the force is in. So you can plug in these starting velocities. Make sure you have the signs in here correctly. So I have B going to the left and A going to the right. And if I assign it coefficient of restitution, I can take these two equations and I can solve for the new velocities coming out of there at the end. And you can kind of see that my 1.29, what A was doing becomes what B is now doing. Or the larger velocity down here becomes a larger velocity for A. So they sort of switch places with one another from start to finish on this thing. And if you set one of these guys up in Mathematica, it's a little bit of a pain to begin with, but there's a lot of different scenarios that you can very easily modify this and change it around. So to start out with, I just have, here's velocity of particle A, right? Here's 5. So now I have the normal and tangent components of A. So just sine and cosine. Now here's B. So B, I have the initial velocity, and I'm going to split B into normal and tangent components here. Here's where I set my coefficient of restitution, and I solve my two equations for my two exit velocities. And then after I get my exit velocities, I'm going to go ahead and say x squared plus y squared equals the total squared, so I can get the entire velocity coming out of here. And then I can look at normal versus tangent. I can get the angle of the force of the velocity coming out of the collision. So it's not too complicated, but it's nice to plug it into Mathematica. And then for any collision, you just go in and change a few angles, change the coefficient of restitution, incoming velocities. And once you have one scenario solved for, it's very easy to modify this for any scenario going on.